Welcome to Squirrel, the podcast for distracted writers, hosted by Candace J. Thomas and Jody L. Milner.
Hi, welcome to Squirrel, the podcast for distracted writers. I'm Candace Thomas.
And I'm Jody L. Milner.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be such a fun episode. I am so excited. So this episode is something I picked, and it's called the Nerdiest Book Challenge.
And she's been geeking out about it for literally a month.
Gosh,
literally.
I just love this idea so much. Okay, so I did set up some ground rules, right? So first of all, it had to be something that you had read fully. It didn't need to be something that you liked, but you definitely needed to have read it. And we were not allowed to share what we each other have. So we might even have the same books. I'm not sure.
We might.
I
doubt it.
I really doubt that you'll have anything. Well, I don't know. That's not true. You may have. There's one that I'm really worried about that you'll have the same one. And then it didn't need to be fiction. It could be nonfiction. Do you have any nonfiction?
I ended up choosing, no, one of them is, hang on. I think I do have a nonfiction.
You do have a nonfiction. I don't. Everything I have is fiction. So, and that's okay. So, and then we will share with these books will be in the description, and we'll share them with everybody so you can find them other places. Yeah. And then, okay. And then I gave you some specific questions to answer, which was, we need the name of the book with the author, a small summary that you put together, a little bit about the book, where and when you had read it, what was happening, why this book is nerdy, and do you feel like a better person for reading it?
And all of a sudden, I'm back in high school again. Did I stress about this assignment? Maybe a little. Maybe a little. I might have texted Candy a few times being like,
Well, nerdy is...
What are you thinking?
Yes, that is
what
exactly...
What direction are we going in?
You had a question about what is considered nerdy, and I don't remember exactly what you...
You had no definition. You were super unhelpful.
Right. Well, my definition, I think it needs to be a personal discipline of what you consider is nerdy and what is not.
Hang on, I can't hold up my sheet because you'll see.
So yeah, but nobody listening is seeing your sheet.
All right, dive into your first, man.
Okay. All right. So we're going to start with number 5. And so just to kind of get my background of what I feel is nerdy, I picked things that were specific to like a niche genre, specific to a specific kind of writer that the author kind of targeted, and that is not going to be for everybody. It is just for a specific audience. So I'm going to start with my number 5. Okay, drum roll, everybody. My 5th nerdiest book is Austenland by Shannon Hale.
Oh dear.
Austenland, if you do not know.
Did not see that coming.
I know, right? But it is so worth this list because, so the small summary that I came up with is Jane is completely obsessed with the BBC Pride and Prejudice and earns a trip to England to this place called Austenland, which is out in the middle of nowhere, England, and she has to dress in period pieces, and everybody has to do like 1800, Edwardian things, and then there's also she also stupidly falls in love with these actors, and it's charming and absolutely ridiculous and absolutely so fun and stupid. It does just kind of go from one realm to the other. So I read this, oh my gosh, several years ago for a book club. It was before the movie came out. So there is a movie, and it has like Carrie Russell, and it's cute, adorable. They didn't take it too seriously for sure. But I read it before then, and it was just, it was kind of a surprise because I've read other things from Shannon Hale, and she is very fantastical. She does a lot of like fables or fairy tales. And here we have something that kind of read like a movie script, honestly. So, and I think that Shannon is pretty nerdy herself because she did dedicate this to Colin Firth. Let's just put that. And we know these people that are kind of obsessed with the BBC Pride and Prejudice, the full 5 hours that we wait, and we wait just for that last kiss at the very last moment of the entire 5 hours.
Yeah, we'll do a whole episode on slow burns later.
Yes.
Okay, justified.
Yes. So that is my, do I feel better as a person for reading it? I don't know. It was a lot of fun. It did kind of pave the way for, like, it wasn't too serious, you know. And I think it also, there's a lot of really fun genres, like with Pride and Prejudice and zombies and other kind of. I was just going to
say that was going to make my list, and then I thought, not quite nerdy enough.
No, but there's a lot of really fun fiction with doing Austen stuff that is specific for that audience, for sure. So anyway, that's my number 5 pick. Okay, your turn.
Alrighty, my number 5 pick is The Martian by Andy Weir.
Ooh.
Whole different direction of nerdiness.
Oh my gosh.
Entirely. Like, this is math nerd meets space.
I've never read it.
Math and science and botany nerd. Like, yeah, the whole movie was him making calculations. The movie was excellent. The book was so techie.
Yeah.
So amazingly techie. Like, yes. So, like, the summary, for those who don't know, and I hope you do, but you don't, this is Mark Watney, getting abandoned on Mars and the world rallying to save him. I read it because the movie was cool, and everyone was talking about it, and they were saying the book was better, and I'm like, prove it, bet.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, sure, okay. And it came up on my library app. I'm like, okay, I'm game.
It knows you.
It was fun. And so, yeah, it's so nerdy. The reason I thought it was a super nerdy pick is that because it's like a super meta sci-fi. Like, everything about it is geek, but not like geek pop culture, like actual science geek. Mm-hmm. So that's why it made my list, because the whole book is literally math. Is him doing like these equations of how many potatoes you need to survive for a year and how many he should plant and how much human feces he needs to create compost. I mean,
that's a question we always need.
It's a good question. But like, does it make me a better person? Like, I thought it kind of did, because the whole thing is the power of perseverance. Like, the whole thing is, even if a situation is super impossible, there's always something you can try, regardless of how absolutely bonkers it is. So that was my number 5 pick. And I have a feeling yours is going to go back into something very different.
Well, we have very different reading. We'll see. I don't know. My 4th nerdiest is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Is that your number 4? Yay! Oh my gosh. We win there. So awesome. Okay.
I had a feeling it might be on yours.
This is one that is hard to not put on your list, because it's just, I don't know, this beautiful love letter
so
to
quirky.
to nerdness. It is. It's quirky. It's the quirky that finds quirky, you know?
And it's pop culture now. Everyone knows the quotes, even if they don't know what it's from. Like, everyone knows 42 is the meaning of life. Like, why do we know that? Why does it make sense? And people are like, oh, it's because of this code thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How would you, like, what's your summary?
Okay, I wrote it out.
That's so hard to put that one into a concise summary.
Right. Arthur Dent hitchhikes on a Vogon aircraft before the Earth is destroyed. He travels with his friend. What is it?
Zaphoid Beeblebrox.
No, that's the president of
No, I know, but they're on the Heart of Gold, or they're trying to get back the Heart of Gold.
It's
There's a moment.
Ford Prefect. That's who it was. It says name here in my description because I had to research it.
Okay,
because it's been a while since I read it. His friend around different places in the galaxy, eventually hitchhiking to the Heart of Destiny, Heart of Gold. Heart of Gold.
Bad fan, no cookie.
No, I put something of destiny.
So, I'm here to keep you honest.
It is the Heart of Gold, where he finds Trisha or Trillian, and the quest to find out the secret of the universe, which we all know. Spoiler: it's 42. That's where I put my description. Okay, so I didn't read this until after I don't know, after I was married, actually, because my husband owned a book. And so I just picked it up because I couldn't find a job. And I was living in a small college town and it was really cold. And yeah, so I read that. What about you?
I read it in high school. I read all of them.
Of course.
There's a whole series, and I read all of them. And
I've only read the second one after. That's the
Restaurant at the End of the Universe is the second one. Yeah, and I was actually quite naughty because I would read them when I was supposed to be doing schoolwork. I would actually read them while at orchestra practice if there was a long break for the second violins. I would whip out a book. I'm sure that was not acceptable. It was fun, though.
That's awesome. Do you feel like a better person because, that's my question. Okay. Why did it make the list? Well, I think that this book just kind of actually does an excellent job of capturing humanity as in like a book frame. And I think that the Vogue on poetry is extremely, I don't know.
Painful?
But it's relatable because we know these poets. We know how terrible they are, And there's just these laugh out loud like nuggets throughout the entire book. What about you?
Douglas Adams is an incredibly talented writer, like super cerebral, intellectual, but putting it in a way that's like really entertaining. Mm-hmm. And so you'll be reading these things and there's these brilliant little descriptions that you're like, I love that. And so, and it's like so perfectly captured, like all these little random tidbits. He just kind of throws them together and they work and it's beautiful and quirky and weird. And it's awesome.
I definitely feel like a better human for reading it, for sure. It's kind of sugar on my brain.
Sugar on the brain, yes. It makes me happy. Everything about it makes me happy.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed the movie, and I'm glad that Douglas Adams had the chance to write the screenplay because it really shows. So, all right. Well, then that was your fourth.
That was my fourth.
Oh, we
tied.
Win. High five. Okay. So I'll start with my third nerdiest. Okay. I doubt that you'll have this. My third nerdiest is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell.
Don't have that.
Have you read it? No. Do you know? Oh my gosh. Oh,
didn't they make a movie out of it?
I don't think so.
Oh no, I'm thinking Swim Fan. That's way different. That's a horror.
No, Fangirl is about, okay, let me just read this synopsis. Kath writes fan fiction about Simon Snow. Now, Simon Snow is a boy wizard, and he goes to a wizarding school.
Gee, I've heard this story.
I know. And it's basically, so, and then she has this, she's attending, so it's not really about her writing fan fiction or about the fan fiction. It's about her secret life while she's attending college that she's hiding. And she's got like everything Simon Snow. She's obsessed with it. She has a lot of fans that follow her fan fiction. And it's basically like Simon Snow is definitely Harry Potter, and it's fan fiction about Harry and Draco. It's just hooking up, and it's just awesome. Now, the reason why I put this on my list is, first of all, it is really close to the target. Like, it absolutely hurt sometimes when I was reading this because Simon Snow is, I mean, I just know this person that writes fan fiction and has everything Simon Snow. And anybody who knows me totally knows how much I geeked out about Harry Potter and how it just kind of was a very important part of my life for like 10 years. So
she has secret fan fiction somewhere.
Stop. I won't admit that, but we won't go into my computers at any time.
You're totally blushing.
No.
I love it.
This is also what's really fun about this is Rainbow Rowell also writ on. So the fan fiction that Kath was writing is called Carry On, and so Rainbow Rowell later wrote that fan fiction as a book. So there's Carry On and Wayward Son. That's like the sequel to Carry On, and those are so much fun to read.
Wait, isn't this the covers that you love so much that you might have copied ideas from them onto your book? Like the colors?
No.
I thought you were inspired by... Okay. Squirrel, sorry. Let's go back. was a squirrely moment there.
I don't know. I'll revisit that, but maybe no, actually, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so why this? Yeah, we know why this made the Nerdiest Book, because this is really close to home. And do I feel like a better person? Well, honestly, I'm glad that I read it. I'm glad that it exists because it reminds me of my perspective as a fan and as a writer. And yes, that's my number 3 pick. Your turn.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
This episode was sponsored by the Farmhouse Recording Studio. The Farmhouse Recording Studio is located in Bluffdale, Utah. It was designed and built for podcasts, audiobooks, radio ads, and so much more. Visit us at farmhouserecording.com. That's all one word, farmhouserecording.com. Or visit our Instagram at The Farmhouse Recording Studio, all one word. Now back to the show.
All right, my number 3 is Red Shirts by John Scalzi. Have you?
No.
Wow, okay.
Do I know it? Yes.
Oh, good.
Have I read it? No.
Okay, so Red Shirts is a Star Trek parody, but the crew becomes self-aware that they're actually being written into a show. Like, and it kind of happens slowly where like these characters start realizing there's these weird like idiosyncrasies that are happening. Like all of a sudden, like everyone will stop and just start talking about random stuff because it's a commercial break and they're not like addressing the problem at hand. And then the second it comes back, everyone's like really focused and they're like, let's fight the target. It's just so random. But then they become increasingly more aware. And as the story goes on, they try to find their writers because they're like upset about how things are going. And it goes very, very meta and it gets very deep into it. And then all of a sudden the whole universe kind of flips inside out. And so like, it's fun. It is a fun read. So I really liked it. Like I didn't know it was going to turn into this meta commentary about like the nature of humanity and reality as we know it. Did not see that coming. I'm like, this is going to be a fun romp that's all about making fun of the guys that always die in the away teams in Star Trek. Like that's what my expectation was, the story of these poor red shirts that know they're going to die because they're red shirts. And then it turns into this thing that's so much more like absolutely nerdy. And that's why it made my list, is because Star Trek. But it's so much more than like a sci-fi. It's like it twists it into so many delightful little ways. And so do I feel better about reading it? Not really. Like it did not make me a better person, but it was really entertaining. It makes me wonder if there's some hapless writer out there that's like writing my life, like in some weird universe. They must be very bored. And like whenever I forget what I'm going to say, he's backspacing over the dialogue. He's like, oh, I wasn't going to write that. No, sorry.
You had another squirrel moment right there.
A little.
Okay, my second nerdiest, we're going down the list, is Off to Be the Wizard by Scott Meyer.
Haven't even heard of that. Oh my gosh.
Oh dear. This is like the best book. I absolutely adore this book. Okay, Martin Banks, a computer geek and pseudo hacker, stumbles upon a computer code of everything. He finds his name and conveniently alters his height and bank account. He also finds that he can time travel. He can alter the timeline and essentially, become a time traveler. So he says, and where else would you go but medieval England to be a wizard? So donned with his Draco Malfoy robe and his handy smartphone, with his custom app, he sets off to be a wizard. Trouble is, so have other people that have found this code. So he goes back in time to be this wizard, and yeah, there's other people that are like, the whole place is like not really enthused about, oh, here's another wizard. And he's like, what do you mean? Well, there's like 5 other wizards that know this code and that came to exact same place. Anyway, it's hilarious. I absolutely adore this book. I stumbled upon it. Well, let's see. It was when I was, I don't remember actually. we'll just skip that part. But I listened to this one. I want to point out that I listened to this through my audio app because it was read by a guy named Luke Daniels, which is one of my very favorite audio readers. So it's very worth reading. So like he read stuff for Kevin Hearn or Delilah Dawson. And he sounds a lot like when I went and found somebody to read my To Dream in Daylight book, I found this guy named Todd Wente, and he sounds just like Luke Daniels. So I am very happy about this. But anyway, that was another squirrel moment.
You are chasing squirrels right and left.
I know, this book just tickles me. I'm so glad it has it tickles all the sensory nerves for geekiness. Like it goes into the different technologies like Commodore 64 or ColecoVision or D&D on The Simpsons. I mean, it's just nothing is not touched in this series, and it keeps going. Like there's a whole bunch of other books in this series, but it is just so worth it and so clever and so funny and witty. And I just absolutely adore this book.
All right, I'm picking it up. You've convinced me.
Yes, please find it. It's worth it. That is Off to Be the Wizard by Scott Meyer.
All right.
Okay, go.
All right, so are we doing a number 2?
Yeah, number 2.
Number 2, my second place is fan fiction by none other than Brent Spiner.
No, this is your nonfiction.
This is technically it's a fiction. My first, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So I didn't know what to expect going into this, and I didn't want to read too much about it because I kind of wanted to be surprised by it. But he tried to write a suspense thriller while weaving it into things that had actually happened to him to some extent. And so we have no idea what actually has happened to him and what he's fictionalizing just to make an interesting story. Oh my God. And so, again, this was one that you do on audiobook because him and the TNG cast are doing their own voices.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so, yeah, you've got Patrick Stewart wandering in.
Oh my
and
goodness.
like
that sounds amazing.
It is super entertaining. Is the story, like, as a suspense thriller, like, coming at it from a writer perspective, it's awful. Like, the story itself, like, if you were just reading it off of the rack and you're like, this looks like it's an adventure, this would be funny. No, like, it does not hit any of the standard points you're supposed to hit in a suspense thriller. And so I'm just like, oh, and then when he's reading it in his, I'm trying to be a stand-up comedian voice, which is
not
entertaining, but not for an audiobook.
It's hard for me not to know that about Data, because if he's not reading it like Data, I don't know what his human voice sounds like.
So whenever he uses the holosuite as a human, sometimes you'll hear it. And it always feels like he's doing the Rodney Dangerfield, where he's like adjusting his tie. Like, what are we going to do? Oh, anyway, worst impression ever. So why I read it, a friend recommended it because it was fun. It is fun. It's really fun. And I bought it as a Christmas gift for my nerdy husband. Mm-hmm. So this was something I bought for someone else and then stole to enjoy for myself. This is how things work at our house. But we ended up listening to the audiobook together. On long car rides, we'd listen to it together. And then at one point we were listening to it while we were hanging out at Lagoon, because that's our local amusement park. And our kids were having a great time without us. And so we're like, we'll just walk and listen to this. It's perfect. Anyway, why is this on the Nerdiest Book? Yes.
We know why.
There's no reason to explain this. I'm kind of embarrassed to have 2 Star Trek books on this. But it's famously nerdy. Am I a better person for reading it? No. Like, there's so many things about it that are like, oh my gosh, this is so painful to listen to. Oh. But yeah, it's fun.
Perfect. Okay. That's awesome. All right. Ready? Drum roll.
I don't know if I can be ready.
My first pick for Nerdiest Book, my number 1 pick, Ready Player One by Ernest Cline.
I thought you might say that.
Oh!
I thought you might say that.
Why? Why would you think that?
Because it's the perfect nerdy pick.
Oh! It is so deep in nerd culture. It is just, it is like embarrassing. You know, I think Ernest Cline wrote a book for him and just wanted to put in all the nostalgia that he could. And whether people understood it or not, he didn't care. So, I mean, it is just so full of nerdy. There are 3 things that I want to pick out about this book. First, as in why I call it the nerdiest. And one, so when, do I need to do people know what Ready Player One is? I did not do a summary.
Like a 2-sentence summary.
Okay, well, Ready Player One is about a world that is not worth living in, so everyone plays a virtual reality game. And they do everything within this virtual reality game. I mean, Wade Watts actually goes to school in this game because the world is just not worth living in. And then the creator dies, and he leaves this huge hunt with all these different, tasks that you have to accomplish in order to win the ultimate prize, which is basically the entire company that he just did for this virtual reality. All right, there we go. So, okay, so this is really nerdy. And I want to point out that the book is very different than the movie. Like, they only share the title and maybe the characters' names. That's really it. So, but there is no way that they could have taken the material from the book and put it into a likable movie. That is just straight up, you cannot do that. So I wanted to point out 3 things. So the quest for Parzival, one of them was to play Joust. And Joust is just one of those games that everyone kind of knows, but it's a console game, or it was an arcade game. And it's just so nerdy. And the fact that I know all about Joust because my brothers played it just tickled me. I was like, nobody would ever reference Joust. Do you know what Joust is?
Was it on the Commodore or was it on the Atari?
Well, I don't know what was on the Commodore. I know it was on the Atari, for sure.
I'm pretty sure, because we had Pitfall and we had some of the other classic art. This is going to date us just a little bit. Children of the 80s.
It was awesome. So yeah, because it had Joust in there. The other one, how he got the extra quarter, the extra life, was he played Pac-Man until the screen melted. And that is that, like, when you try to flip over that, to one number height, you like got the maximum that you can in, and the screen melts. That's a real thing. And that was on there. But the very nerdiest thing on there was that Parzival had to quote the entire movie and act it out of Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Of course.
And it was, we know
Which
these people.
Proves Ernest Cline was also a child of the 80s.
We know this guy. We know these people. We hate to watch this movie with them because they quote it all the time.
That would be me.
And so that's when that was put into the book, I went, oh, this is gold. This is absolutely adorable. I love this book so much. And that is why, do I feel like a better person? Kind of. I'm just glad that something speaks to the specifics of my nerdiness, if that makes sense. So I'm sure that there are people that read this and went, I don't understand this at all. But then there's us that are in this little, that are behind the bookcase going, yes, we're so glad that you made this. That's it. Okay.
That is a good pick. That is a good first place pick. Absolutely. So I feel my first place pick might need a little explaining.
Okay.
So I'm a Red Dwarf fan. And if anyone doesn't know what Red Dwarf is, that's a BBC sci-fi that's making fun of all of the other sci-fis.
I love Red Dwarf.
And so there is a robot on Red Dwarf. His name is Crichton. Crichton is played by Robert Llewellyn. Robert Llewellyn is a writer, and he has like 15 books out. Don't quote me on that. I don't know the exact number.
Oh, my goodness.
One of those books is called The Man in the Rubber Mask, and it's talking about his experience being on Red Dwarf.
Oh.
I did not know this book existed. I did not know he wrote. I was at a thrift store, and I was pawing through these, moldy paperbacks that had all been manhandled to death, and I see this title, and I see this Red Dwarf symbol underneath it. I'm like, what is this? And so, I pick it up for like 25 cents. I'm just like, oh yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Oh yeah, I'm going to read this. So it's like this weirdly obscure book. And it's all about his experience about playing Crichton on Red Dwarf and how like his prosthetic makeup was insanely uncomfortable and his whole outfit was just clunky. And they were making it like they didn't think the series was going to be very successful. And so like a lot of the stuff was very low budget. And so he had all these problems with the suit. And I swear half of it was like duct tape and hot glue.
I know.
And
we recognize that too.
oh, yeah.
That's one of the things that made it adorable.
So, yeah, it was just kitschy and super funny. And so this is my number one pick for my nerdiest book I've ever read ever, is a man from a series that very few people have heard about now.
Please go watch.
But they're
Red
very
Dwarf.
loyal, those who have. And it's his experience with being this very obscure robot character.
Bravo. That is a
nerdiest book
fantastic first
ever.
pick. And I definitely am going to check that out. So cool. Well, I'm so glad we did this. This one's
So random.
This is a good episode. Okay, what do we got next coming up? Our next episode.
Coming up is, I believe, all about writer validation and how you
goodness.
deserve a gold star.
You deserve five stars, actually.
I like stars.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming, listening to our podcast. You just had a moment, didn't you?
Little one. Candy, it's been delightful.
Yes, absolutely. Oh,
Until
thanks.
next time.
Thank you so much for coming.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad our audience is listening.
The end. Thank you for listening to the Squirrel Podcast for the Distracted Writer with Candace J. Thomas and Jody L. Milner. This episode was recorded at the Farmhouse Recording Studio. Please like and subscribe to our podcast for updates and new episodes, and find more information at our website, squirrelpodcast.com. Stay distracted, everyone.
And we stick the landing.
I don't even.